Program Coordinator for Southern Africa at the United Nations Environment Programme, Cecilia Njenga, says South Africa's biodiversity is being threatened by mining and industrial development. She was speaking at the country's official World Environment Day event organised by the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment in Pretoria. World Environment Day is commemorated annually on June 5th. This year's theme is Reimagine, Recreate, Restore. Now, to discuss this, we are joined by Cecilia Njenga from the United Nations Environmental Programme. Cecilia, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, you've described that biodiversity is threatened by mining and industrial development. I can think of one species that is responsible for this. Now, perhaps before we start, unpack what biodiversity means and why it's important for us to preserve it.
Biodiversity is very crucial, Lunati. As we celebrate World Environment Day, we are bringing the world's view into the greatest environmental degradation we have experienced over the years. Biodiversity is crucial, and I'll just give you an example. The bee is one of the insects that's faced with this extinction, and the bee plays a very significant role in pollination. If we lose the bee, that means we can lose the world's food system. The food systems would be disrupted, as well as our soils, etc., because ecosystems and different species play a significant role in ensuring that humanity and nature continue to be intact. And we've increasingly seen, as we are celebrating the second World Environment Day within the COVID-19 pandemic period, that there is a direct link between the loss of biodiversity and human health. And therefore, we are emphasizing the need for us to focus, to reimagine, to reignite and to restore planet Earth in order for it to continue to sustain us and to sustain our future generations.
Ms. Njenga, as things stand currently, what is the status of the country's biodiversity? In your speech earlier today, you mentioned that biodiversity is being threatened by mining and industrial development. Talk to us about how severe this problem is.
This is extremely severe. You will recall that just a couple of years ago, here in South Africa and in Cape Town in particular, we experienced water shortages. This is just one indication that when we degrade our ecosystems, when we pollute our ecosystems, and now, of course, being faced by the global challenge of climate change, that our ecosystems will not continue to provision humanity with the basic needs they require, the basic need of clean water, the basic need of food, the basic need of clean air. And therefore, as we continue, we celebrated industrialization and development, but we realize that the development pathway that we are taking as human beings is actually on a destructive pathway, and the need for us to continuously integrate sustainability within our development plans, both at the local level and even at the household level and globally. As Minister Christie mentioned, the need for a multilateral action. Pollution in one country knows no border. We are talking about transboundary water systems, the Zambezi River, the Orania River, etc., and all these cross borders, and therefore the need to collaboratively work across the border with different governments, with different communities to ensure that our environment continues to remain intact for ourselves and future generations.
Now, food security is one of the greatest threats, I guess, globally, but more so in the continent. How important is biodiversity to South Africa's food security as a start?
It's really the foundation. A good biodiversity system, one that is well nurtured and restored, ensures that the nutritious food is harvested, nutritious food is grown, and therefore the ecosystem is a major foundation in the entire value chain of the production of food systems for livestock, for food crops, and for the livelihoods of people. And therefore, the reason why we are saying that the call for action as we launch the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration is not just for one sector. It's for all the sectors, whether it's agriculture, whether it is energy, whether it is industry, ecotourism. We all have to work together in an integrated manner in order for all of us to benefit from what nature provides, but also for us to harness in a sustainable way and in an economically development way, and to ensure livelihoods of people across the country, across the continent in a much more sustained way. So biodiversity is critical, and it's really the foundation of our health and of our environment.
Ms. Njenga, you mentioned integration. You also talked about how Minister Creasy talked about multinational action and approach. In terms of, who is to blame when it comes to just having this impact on the environment, we know that mining companies, we told, spend millions of rands annually, just on sustainability alone. But how can we hold mining companies accountable so that they can minimize their role and their impact on the environment?
We are increasingly seeing that the mining sector and many other manufacturing industry, whether it's in the fossil fuel sector or it's in mining, that a lot of times leaves a lot of distraction to our ecosystem, integrating sustainability principles in their business. They have also started realizing that it's not business as usual, that if they do not integrate environmental and sustainability principles, the integrity of their processes, the integrity of them being able to extract economic value in their processes will continue to diminish. We know that increasingly all of us are starting to be very aware of the need to even consume items that have been manufactured or produced in a sustainable manner. And therefore, even if industry does not take action now, come 3, 5 years, 10 years down the line, they will have no market. So it's very important that industry starts now before it is too late and before they lose their consumers and lose the economic gains they're aiming to have. They must start integrating environmental and sustainability principles in the entire value chains.
Speaking of value chains, how important do citizens, take the environment seriously? We know that, on days like this is when we start talking about climate change and also, just certain environmental issues that impact on how we live. Single plastic use was a big craze a couple of years ago. Now we've done away with that. But people still go back to doing things the way in which it will not sustain us in the future. What are some of the practical things that we can do on a day-to-day basis as citizens to preserve the environment and to preserve our biodiversity?
Yeah, actually, the movements that we are starting as we start the new UN decade for ecosystem restoration is #ecosystem restoration. And I'm hoping that particularly all the young people will be participating in this process. There are basic things as individuals that we can start doing. First, as UNEP, we launched today what we call the Ecological Restoration Classroom. And this is a classroom that is taking young learners across the 3 different provinces in South Africa and educating them and raising awareness with them on the importance of ecosystem and the role that ecosystems play in humanity, in provisioning for humanity. And for me, education and awareness raising is one of the first steps, and particularly for the young children, the young learners, so that they can grow knowing about the importance of environment and the role it plays in their own human life. The second way is very basic. Let's talk about waste. It's really about human behavior, how we dispose of our waste, even at the household level, how we relate with waste, but trying to significantly understand that waste is a resource and that recycling and that integrating elements and a practice of managing our waste and not disposing it in a very unfortunate way where we find it littering our rivers, littering our open spaces, etc. So that's one. The third one is on green spaces. All of us aspire to live in clean cities. We can all form a movement like we've seen in Kigali and many other cities across the world, where they have developed a tradition of coming out in large numbers every once a month or every once a week to clean up their neighborhoods, etc. So, and also the practices of energy. How do we save energy? How do we remember to turn out the taps off, etc.? So there are many, many, many actions that we can do at an individual level. But during this World Environment Day, we are saying that we want to also scale up some of the initiatives that are happening. The Great Green Wall for Africa is one great initiative in the Sahel region. So how can we look at examples of restoration and scale this up to a level that it has huge impact for us and for restoration and for future generation? So we are calling on more resources, more concerted efforts by community groups, by civil society, and by government to all play a role in restoring over 2 million hectares across the world, because this will be really significant in achieving the goals we have set ourselves.
Ms. Cecilia Njenga, a pleasure to have you on the show this afternoon. That was Ms. Cecilia Njenga from the United Nations Environmental Programme. Staying with the story now.